Hey guys, Yamakiller here, back again with another slideshow presentation, a deep dive on magic if you do say so, but here we are ready for another big magic presentation. Before I get into what I'm going to be talking about, I want to ask you for a few things. One, if you like the video, make sure to like the video, comment what you liked about it, subscribe to the channel, all those freebies that help me out a lot. And, two, if you make it all the way through the video, tell me what you liked. As I said, comment, give me some constructive criticism. I would like to know how I can improve on these videos, what type of videos you'd like to see in the future, and how I can continue to make content that you guys would enjoy and like to watch. So, with all that being said, let's get into the topic. So, today's topic is why your favorite card should stay banned. I'm going to be talking about the modern ban list. I know a lot about it, and I'm going to say through all the cards why I think they should either be staying banned, be unbanned, so on and so forth, and exactly why they were banned, why they weren't banned, and such. So let's get into it. As I said, I'm going to be focusing on modern. I've been playing modern since 2014, so I played through a lot of these bans. I have the most experience in this format. I have a lot of experience playing with the cards that are being banned. I understand why they were banned because I played against them, with them, and built decks around them. And, I've got a lot of experience, got a lot of knowledge. I'm going to tell you why people thought they should be banned, why, the ban list, the people who curate the ban list thought they should be banned, why I think they could potentially be unbanned, and why I think they should potentially stay banned as well. So, I'm not going to be talking about a lot of cards on the modern ban list because I think some of these cards are not really needing an explanation. I'll maybe take 2 to 3 minutes right now, go over each of these cards really quickly, why I think these cards should never be unbanned, basically ever. So let's do that right now. Let's do a lightning round. So first, with the artifact lands, we've seen with the reprinting of the tapped artifact lands that those are very exact power level for modern and very reasonable. Blazing Shoal, combo card, doesn't really bring anything. Either, facilitates turn 2/3 combo kills, or does absolutely nothing. Bridge from Below, another card that is just combo based, either does absolutely nothing or is broken. I'm going to go down the list of these things kind of like Chrome Mox, Dark Depths, Dread Return. All these cards are either way too good or do absolutely nothing, so it doesn't really bring anything to the metagame. Dig Through Time, incredibly good card advantage spells that has essentially been broken in every single format, banned or restricted in everything. Taxian Probe has been banned in every single format, way too good. Free card draw, storm count, look at your opponent's hand, way, way too good. Glyphs of Nature, you've seen it being printed a bunch of different ways in 2 or 3 mana, and seems to be fine there. Doesn't really need to be unbanned, too good of a card advantage spell. Hogak, recently banned, much, much too good. The deck is broken in Legacy, and basically uses the exact same cards from Modern. Hypergenesis, another combo card that either breaks the format or does nothing. Oko Thief of Crowns, just much too good of a value card, hard to interact with, can interact with everything yourself. Mental Misstep creates these power dynamics between your opening hands and your opponent's opening hands that are just centered around, who has more missteps. Mystic Sanctuary, it loops in a way that prisons your opponent out. Finally, the last 5 cards, Uro, too good of a card advantage spell, and too ubiquitous in control decks. Skull Clamp, I don't really need to say anything about Skull Clamp, this card's broken. Treasure Cruise, the same as Dig Through Time. Tybalt's Trickery, another combo card that either does nothing or is incredibly too good. Summer Bloom, another card that either does nothing or is incredibly too good. So, with all that being said, I basically don't want to talk about these cards that either obviously break the power level scales in ways that, have been shown very recently to be broken, or cards that are just combo cards that don't really bring anything to the format rather than a combo you can't interact with or does nothing. So, let us go move in further. Once again, I want to talk about the series. I think this is going to be a multi-part series. I don't want to be going over every single card because there's around 20 cards I want to talk about. If I want to go in depth and talk more about each card, it would end up being a 2, maybe 3-hour video for this. So I'm going to break it down maybe 4 or 5 parts. I'll see how much I can get through in all of these things. But yeah, I just wanted to do basically an introduction for this part, saying what cards I don't really want to talk about, what I'm going to be talking about the modern ban list, how it's going to be a multi-part series. And really, now we're going to dive deep into the meat of the situation because, now that I've gone through, my prelude to the information, it is time to go. So, the reason I'm going to be breaking down each card, I'm going to start with the reason for banning it, why it could be unbanned, and why it should stay banned. and I'm going to say at the end of it why I've gone through all these points, what I think should happen to the card. Basically, should it remain on the ban list? Do I think it's fine to unban? Or maybe I'm in the middle and maybe you want to give it a trial period, something like that. So let's get into the cards. First, Arcum's Astrolabe. Arcum's Astrolabe needs a single snow mana. You play it, you draw a card, and it is a Prophetic Prism, a card that turns any mana into any other type of mana, while also making it snow mana. So this is another important thing to say. It is a snow permanent as well. Actually, I'm not sure if it turns into snow mana, but it is a snow permanent itself, which does include snow synergies. So, what's so broken about Astrolabe that it needs to be banned? It's mana fixing and a cantrip. A lot of games would start out with your opponent going fetch for an island, or fetch for plains, or fetch for some sort of basic, play Arcum's Astrolabe. You now know from that point your opponent essentially will never have mana troubles. They can play Cryptic Command, and Icefang Coatl, and Teferi Time Raveler, and Archmage's Charm, mixed with, Field the Dead as a colorless land, lots of basics, Renin 6, Omnath, all these cards that go together that are usually very hard to play together. You constrains your mana. Immediately is the load is taken off. Arcum's Astrolabe does it all. And not only does it in the sense that it's a 1-mana spell but it also does it in a way that can change white mana into red mana into blue mana into black mana. It's not in the same way like an Abundant Growth that does the same thing, where it's only on a single land. This turns any land that's not doing its job into Arcum's Astrolabe. Arcum's Astrolabe turns it into any color of mana you want. So it fixes your mana in a way that's not unique to something like a Abundant Growth or something like Utopia Sprawl. It's something that can fix any of your mana moving forward at no cost, essentially. So every deck that wanted to play 2+ colors played it because it's a cantrip. It draws itself a card and makes your mana impenetrable. You want a Blood Moon? Okay, I have 2 Arcum's Astrolabes. I can turn them into, turn my mana into whatever I want with a basic or 2. Because you needed to get basics to be able to play the card. And since it turns it into snow mana, you can use an Arcum's Astrolabe to play for another Arcum's Astrolabe. So it really ramps itself into itself as well. And during the time of Astrolabe, 3, 4, 5 color decks were really omnipresent. Omnath took hold, Uro. These decks that really, could abuse the fact that I was playing 4 or 5 colors and really play whatever you wanted. Renin 6, Renin 6 with a Stoneforge Mystic with an Assassin's Trophy, and, there is no real problem with your mana, and you'd even play Force Negation in a pile of blue cards, and your mana was just turn 1 Arcum's Astrolabe, no mana problems for the rest of the game. And it really was problematic. So, why is Astrolabe could be unbanned? Maybe, it's possible that it could be unbanned, because in the past, Arcum's Astrolabe was one of the best 1-drops you could lead on in any given game. But now, mana has gotten better. We have fetchable tri-lands. Really changed the game for these 3, 4, 5 color decks, Niv Mizzet, not really having a problem. You get Abundant Growth, Utopia Sprawl, these tri-lands really changed the game for how mana is. Mana is significantly more consistent now than it ever has been in the past. Except for, maybe in the Arcum's Astrolabe era. And 1-drops have gotten better, In the past, your 1-drop cantrip was maybe your Serum Visions. But now, you can play a Ragavan, you can play a DRC, you can play, you can play these cards that also generate advantage, and potentially mana advantage and, cantripping and making it so your deck runs smoother, and they don't have to be Arcum's Astrolabe. They don't necessarily have to be a mana fixer in the sense that it fixes your colorless lands or any color into a different color. Ragavan is a mana fixer and a mana ramper. It gives you treasures. DRC gets you to the mana that you want or gets you to the cards that you want. It cantrips in a different subtle way with the Surveil. These cards that are now becoming ubiquitous and modern are to the same power level of Arcum's Astrolabe. So it's possible that we can add it back into the metagame because of the fact that, there are better 1-drops to play, that you're not necessarily going, okay, my 1-drop of choice is Arcum's Astrolabe because it fixes my mana, and I get, I stay at card parity. So, those are some of the reasons it could be unbanned, and why it should stay banned. Mana is sacred. With Arcum's Astrolabe out, your mana base could be whatever you want it to be. It can be a Field of the Dead mixed with a Field of Ruin mixed with a basic island, and 2 Astrolabes, you're casting Archmage's Charm. Like, something like that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't feel like your mana doesn't really have to happen. I remember I was playing a red-green Blood Moon base deck along with Chokes, and my opponent went basic Plains, basic Forest, and Field of Ruin, and they were casting Archmage's Charm and Force Negation against me, and I thought that was a bit ridiculous. that something like that could happen. You could play around these cards that are meant to attack certain decks, attack their mana because they're playing 4 and 5 colors, and it just doesn't do anything because Arcum's Astrolabe invalidates these cards. It completely invalidates mana denial. It makes it so Blood Moon, Pillage, these other cards that are trying to, take you off of a color or potentially stunt your mana, especially if your spells are significantly better than the opponent's spells. That's not a valid game plan. That's not a game plan you can do anymore. And as I said before, it is the best. It was one of the best, if not still would be the best, if unbanned, best modern cantrip. It comes into play, fixes your mana, draws you a card. What more can you really ask? And do I think Arcum's Astrolabe should stay banned? Personally, I think it should be. I think it really turns decks into homogenous piles in the sense that, you don't have to worry. The color pie doesn't really exist when Arcum's Astrolabe is around. I don't really think that should be a noteworthy thing for the modern format, that mana doesn't matter. The one thing I do think about it is Ice-Fang Quaddle was a card that was potentially interesting and a card that could have changed and made control decks a bit better. And without Arcum's Astrolabe, that card really isn't seeing play or really playable in the format because getting a lot of basics does have its problems. If you have to go get basic island forest, you can't really play 3 colors to a great extent, and it really dampens your ability to make the card good. So that's one of the reasons why possibly it could come back, because it makes Ice-Fang Quaddle a card again. And that is somewhat interesting. But personally, for my take, I would say no Arcum's Astrolabe, unban. I think it should stay on the ban list. So let's go on to our second card, Birthing Pod. Let me take a quick sip. Birthing Pod is, it's a creature toolbox machine. When you sacrifice a creature, search for a card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus sacrifice creature cost, put it onto the battlefield, shuffle your library, only a sorcery, and you can only activate it. So you can only activate it as a sorcery. Now this card was in Modern for a while. It was a tier 1 player. It was an entire deck built around Pod. It was, could range from an incredibly combo-y based deck to a, value-based deck with a side of combo. But why was Pod banned? Why was this card seemingly, it's 3 mana. You have to use Phyrexian mana. It costs you mana each time. It's going to cost you life if you want to cheat on the mana. But why was it banned? So Birthing Pod was banned. It was a 1-card killing machine. You could, in the past, go from a 2-drop or even a 1-drop sometimes into a combo kill. You'd go Birds of Paradise into some 2-mana untapper, or, go into Deceiver Exarch, untap your Birthing Pod, put the Exarch into a Restoration Angel, and I'm not 100% sure the combo. It's been a really long time for me since I've seen it. But it was fairly easy to combo with the card. And not only that, it was also producing too much value. It actually was one of the best decks in the Treasure Cruise Dig Through Time era. Surprisingly enough, you just turn your Kitchen Finks into a Siege Rhino and just do that a bunch of times and your opponents would usually lose, Modern was a different place back then. And I imagine there's similarly broken things you can do. Yawgmoth, one of the decks that I could imagine Pod could fit fairly, well into with the Undying creatures. Kitchen Finks and Geralt's Messenger, one and the same. So it also restricts design space. If you're designing a card, you go okay, this is a kind of cool enter the battlefield effect, and your opponent and someone just says, I'll throw 5 of them in my deck, I'll just pod into it every single game, and I'll just pod every single time, and it will just happen every single game without fail, guaranteed 100% of the time, and with very little deck building restrictions. It restricts how good you can make some enter the battlefield effects or some mechanics like Undying. Really, it was a lot of restriction in the design space, is what they said, that really put them over the edge for banning Pod. So why could it be unbanned? Toolbox decks, nearly non-existent. Even with something like the green-white instant lets you grab for a creature. It's escaping my mind at the moment. Even with cards like Eldritch Evolution, Court of Calling, basically the only creature toolbox deck you see right now that is putting out any amount of numbers is Yawgmoth. As I'm saying, creature combo who? Yawgmoth is basically all you have. And this is because you have a 4-mana card that breaks open board states and draws you 10 cards. And basically is an insane powerhouse by itself. So without a card like Yawgmoth, creature combo and these toolbox decks essentially would not exist at all. Devoted Druid is basically a non-factor in most metagames, Kitchen Finks or Heliod-based, collected company decks basically don't exist anymore. These toolbox decks and these creature combo decks don't exist, so maybe we could boost it up with a card like Pod, really invigorating the archetype. But so, oh, that's the wrong slide. Here we go. Now, why Pod should stay banned. It is a one-card combo now. Basically, you can go from Birds of Paradise into, I think it's a 1/4 Monitor of some sort, untap Birthing Pod, go get Deceiver Exarch, and then untap it again, get Kiki. There's some way, I believe, to basically kill from a 0-drop into a combo kill your opponent. I think it may be untap, get Kitchen Finks, or some combination of cards. It's escaping my mind at the moment as it's fairly complicated without seeing it in front of me. But the point is that Birthing Pod by itself and basically a fetch land, because you can turn, a Dryad Arbor into a Birds and go up the chain, is a one-card combo. And that's not really what we want to see out of a card, especially a 3-mana card. It really, hurts some diversity in Modern and really, is not very fun to just have your opponent just, okay, I play Birthing Pod, whoop, 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 you're dead, and there's no way that you could really interact with. So, also, infinite value, it is not going to be great if your opponent has some ETB effect that they'll just go like, okay, turn 1 Birds, turn 2 Pod, okay, I'm podding into this effect, it's just going to, you're never going to get back on value in me, and being able to repeatedly do this is really just like, it's going to make the games feel very samey, and make it so that you can't really get back into the game. Because of the fact that, Eldritch Evolution is a card. Let's think about Pod and an Eldritch Evolution type of card. Eldritch Evolution is a card that sees play in Modern right now in Yawgmoth combo, and has seen play in many different, creature toolbox decks in the past. Now, Pod is like Eldritch Evolution, but on steroids, and is just completely out of the park for repeated tutor effect, and a tutor effect that really, doesn't cost you as much mana as well. So, with all these things put together, I really do believe Pod should stay banned. I can't imagine it being healthy for the format. I imagine creature decks just turning into Pod, Wonderland. And while it would be somewhat interesting to see how the decks are built within like a month or 2-month range, I think they would become incredibly homogenous near the end and figuring out, okay, you have these certain cards, and this is what you're going to be doing, and this is how the combo works, and this is how you're going to be interacting with the opponent. And people are either going to not really be able to deal with it in a positive way, or, there's also the possibility that Pod does absolutely nothing, in which case, why unban it in the first place? But what I think mostly is that it would create just a deck that would be too good for Modern, is my guess. I'm not, this is just speculation, but my guess is Pod will not be good for Modern. I think it should stay banned. So let us get onto our last card of the video, Cloudpost. Now, Cloudpost is a land that comes into play tapped. You had 1 generic mana for each locust you have in play. Cloudpost usually comboed with Glimmerpost, Vesuva, and, Thespian Stage to really make extra Cloudpost and generate a lot of mana very, very quickly. So, why was Cloudpost banned? The article in which Cloudpost was banned, people said you could create 15 mana as soon as turn 4. Now, that seems a little bit broken for Modern, especially a format without Wasteland, a format that has most of its mana denial in the sideboard, and something that is hard to interact with in game ones. And ramp all look the same. I'm going to be playing Cloudpost because it creates the most amount of mana. Why would I do anything else? There's no I'm not going to Farseek for, Titans. I'm not going to play Tron. I'm just going to play Cloudpost because that's what it is. So why maybe unban Cloudpost? Tron exists, so why not Cloudpost? Tron creates 7 mana on turn 3. Cloudpost, if it doesn't have its super nutty draws, it's probably creating less mana than that on turn 3, potentially more on turn 4 and 5, but it's taking some time to set up. The cards come into play tapped. It's not guaranteed. You have to put a lot of time and effort into it. It takes time and specific cards to get online. You probably have to play cards like Sylvan Scrying, a la Tron as well, Ancient Stirrings. These cards, it's still set up. It's not guaranteed you're going to have infinite mana incredibly quickly without any setup. And, there's lots of sideboard plans. Blood Moon, Alpine Moon, Pillage, obviously red things, blue things, Spreading Seas, Damping Sphere exists. There's lots of good sideboard cards that you can use against these decks. It's not, even colorless, as I said in Damping Sphere, it's not infallible. Now, why should Cloudpost stay banned? Incredibly linear deck. You're playing Cloudpost, you're playing your big threat. There's not really much to say about that. You need specific interaction or you blow out the game, By turn 3 or 4, the game could just be over with some big colorless threat you couldn't really interact with because you didn't have the correct, piece to interact with their Tron, and they were able to assemble their their game plan without much interaction or, retaliation from you. And do we really need another Tron? I know personally when I play against Tron, I groan and moan and don't really like it, even though I do play Tron myself, which I do enjoy it from time to time. Do we really need another deck where you're like, cloudpost? Gosh, that is not fun. Sideboard roulette, boys. How many cloudpost hate do I have on my sideboard? So it's really just, you need specific interaction, and if you don't have it, you're going to get cloud posted. It's kind of the same thing, it happens in Legacy where cloud post does seem play. If you don't have Wasteland, if you don't have Back to Basics, these decks can really steamroll you and get their, unbeatable deck rolling very, very quickly if you don't have the type of interaction that you need. So, do I think Cloud Post should stay banned? Personally, I think Tron is already reasonable and good in Modern. Maybe not to the same extent that it was in Tier 1 in the days past, but it's still a reasonable deck to play. And I think Cloud Post is like Tron on steroids, so it's not really something that I think we should be seeing in Modern. I don't think should be unbanned. Another X no unbans. Even though today was all unbans, or today was all bans, there will be some cards in the future that you will see I do think should maybe be unbanned. But closing statement for today, the ban list exists for reasons. These cards are on the ban list because, they were put there either a long time ago or recently. And I think they should all stay there, and they're there for a reason. They've been there for many, many, many years. People have looked at no ban list tourneys and played some of these cards in them, and either, they're too good even in the no ban list era, or, they're still incredibly good against today's metagame and today's cards that exist that are not banned. So, sometimes you gotta admit your favorite card is too good. I'm gonna be having a card later on these lists in another part that I love to play with, and I'm gonna tell you guys it's too good. You'll see that in the future. But if you're a Cloud Post lover in Legacy, if you're a Birthing Pod lover in something like Legacy, very rarely, or something like Commander, or you want all your mana to be perfect with Arcum's Astrolabe, you gotta admit to yourself, my card's too good. It should stay on the ban list, and that's just the way it is. So, as I said, maybe I think some cards should be unbanned. I'm going to be making this a multi-part series. I'm going to be going over the rest of the ban list that I did not talk about in this video. It will take me some time to work on, and I'll probably bring it out, over the next few weeks or the next few months as I work it into my video schedule. But if you like this video, if you liked what I talked about, some of these ban list cards that have been banned on Modern for a long time, or, you want to see what cards I think should possibly come off the ban list or what cards I still think should be banned in the future, make sure to give the video a like. Tell me what you liked about this video. Tell me in the comments down below what you liked, what you didn't like. I want to keep making these videos better. It's going to take me some time to really perfect and get everything down to a science. As you saw, this video was really, really structured a different way than I usually do these videos. So tell me if you liked it. Tell me if you didn't. Tell me anything in between. And thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it a lot. And I will see you guys next Sunday for the next part of this video. Bye-bye.